Hey folks, Pat here from DNS. This Madison area fishing report is current as of September 9th. Before we get started, just wanted to let everybody know about a Learn to Fish event with DNR. They're hosting in conjunction with Madison Parks. So the event is this Wednesday, September 14th from 5 to 7 p.m. So you can stop down after work. It's being held at Filene Park, which I didn't even know existed. Filene Park is apparently the small park that's right next door to the Tenny Park boat launch. So I think most of the world would call this Tenny Park boat launch park or something, but its name is Filene Park, and the DNR will have their trailer down there between 5 and 7 p.m. on Wednesday. They'll have folks down there to help instruct you on everything you need to know to get started fishing, and they will have rods and reels available and bait for folks to check out fishing. They do a great job. They do these events all over the state, and I know they do a great job getting people into fishing, and it's a great chance to go down and learn about fishing or take someone down that you might know that wants to get introduced to fishing. They do ask that you register either online or calling 608-266-4711. Yeah, if you can make it down there, it's a great way to tighten that learning curve and learn to fish. That's this Wednesday, 5 to 7 p.m. Otherwise, on to the report. This week we've had some great weather. Another wonderful week, stable weather, temps in the mid 70s to low 80s, low humidity. There's a little rain in the forecast, it sounds like, for Saturday night into Sunday and maybe even Monday. But otherwise, the rest of the week looks great weather-wise and temperature-wise. The buoy out here on Lake Mendota was reading 72.9 degrees this morning. That's actually down almost 2 degrees from what it was reading at this time yesterday, so that's kind of interesting. But generally around the chain, fishing has been pretty good. Perch action on Mendota has remained slow for the most part. Lots of fish being caught, but a lot of small fish, so I'll call it slow. Um, the good news is there are a lot of bluegills being found around the lake along the weed lines mixed in with those perch, and I've also been getting reports about some nice gills coming off the mid-lake humps just the last couple days. Um, there are a lot of gills still suspended and being caught over Lake Monona, and largemouth bass in weedy areas around the chain, smallmouth bass at rocks and breaks in 10 to 20 feet of water. Lots of pike around the chain, and that action has been picking up. Those fish are a lot of fish in the 20 to 30 inch range, but I've been hearing about more and more of those getting caught as the days get shorter and the nights get cooler. And the muskie bite continues to pick up like it does in fall, but it was a slow start to the year, but action's been picking up. If you need any proof of that, friend of the shop and local guide Noah Humpfeld posted on Instagram here a bunch of beautiful muskies that he's been putting clients on. So yeah, there's your proof that the muskies are out there and they are in the mood to eat. So that's good to hear. I guess let's get into a little more detail on the report. Cherokee is still a weedy mess, but I do get quite a few people that come in here in kayaks and canoes that get up in there, and they've been doing really well on some largemouth bass and some good pike action up there. The 113 bridge catfish action has started to pick up again. I've heard about quite a few nice fish coming out of the 113 bridge. Lake Mendota, like I said, the perch action has been um, there've been a lot of fish being caught, but a lot of small fish. Those fish are being caught on the weed lines, or just in the weeds, or just off the weeds, but the weed line area in general, um, all around the lake. The good news is that mixed in with those fish are the bluegills, like I mentioned. I've also been hearing about some bluegills being caught out on mid-lake humps, and those fish are mixed right in with walleyes and smallmouth. So I guess if I was going to send anybody out on Lake Mendota right now, I'd probably send them to some of the mid-lake humps, and some of the steep breaks too are a pretty safe bet for walleye and smallmouth. I've also been hearing about some nice action coming out of the University shoreline down here, and the Tenny Park action has been slow. I mentioned last week that the Tenny Park Lock and Dam itself is closed for the rest of the season due to some electrical issues. But I've heard the action below the dam itself has kind of slowed. But just this week, the last few days, I've been hearing about some of the folks that fish regularly down here about some walleyes coming out of the Tenney Park area, and that action's only going to increase as we move into fall. Still hearing about the same tiny bluegills and decent largemouth bass. Some actually some really nice fish in the Tenney Park Lagoon. Action in the river itself has slowed as far as what I hear around the shop. Down here at the mouth of the Yahara, still hearing about some good action down there for bass and the occasional walleye coming out of there. Around Lake Monona, I still hear occasionally about some perch being caught along the weed line and sometimes in the weeds, but most of your bluegill action is now primarily out over deep water, so anywhere from 30 to 70 feet, just drifting along is still a strong bite out there, and some really nice fish coming out of that area. And you're just going to want to jig a small jig tipped with a spike or a piece of redworm or something about 15, 20 feet down, drifting over that deep water, and you'll eventually bump into some fish. The Monona Terrace Wall over here has been still producing some great bluegill and crappie action and a few walleyes. I did hear about a giant pike that came out of there this last week too. The Monona Bay triangles and the Monona Bay itself has been producing bluegills and crappies. Lake Wingara has been generally quiet. I haven't heard much for muskie action over there. A little bit of bass action going on. Most of your muskie action, though, is happening out on Lake Monona, and a lot of that action, from what I hear, has been more on the southern half of the lake. Moving down the chain, upper mud. I haven't heard much out of there, but I know the bass are pretty stacked in here in the weed lines or in the weed flats. So get out there and toss some topwater for them. The dredge hole up here is a pretty safe bet for some panfish on the weed line. Lake Wabisa, I've been hearing about some good muskie action all around the lake. Walleye action has been a little quiet from what I've heard, but panfish action's been good on the weed lines, both bluegills and perch being caught around there. I guess I did hear a little bit about some walleyes caught jigging out around the Hog Island area, and some good panfish action out of the south end of Lake Wabisa. But yeah, again, good muskie action and some nice pike coming out of here. Heard about some bass still at the Babcock County Park and below the dam there. I've been hearing about some fish getting stacked up there, some white bass actually, and a few cats. Down at Kegonsa's remained pretty quiet report-wise here at the shop, but if I was fishing down there, I'd focus on the weed lines for perch and bluegills. Might find some white bass schooled up somewhere in the lake. Walleyes jigging out in front of the state park or trolling is usually a pretty safe bet. I guess that's it for around the chain. Elsewhere around the area, I've been hearing about some good numbers of walleyes down on Lake Koshkonong here at the mouth of the Rock River. Most of those fish being caught trolling, but a lot of short fish. So, but pretty consistent action, and also a nice mixed bag of fish caught out there trolling. I have been hearing about some good catfish action picking up between Fort Atkinson and Jefferson. Some actually flatheads being caught out here. So, and some really nice ones, 20 plus pounders. Some really giant fish coming out of there. So it's nice to see that action picking up. Let's see where else. Up here on the Wisconsin River, I haven't heard much out of Beaver Dam. Usually I've been reporting on Beaver Dam, but I haven't heard much out of there lately. So up to the Wisconsin at the Prairie du Sac Dam, it sounds like water levels are low around the river. I checked them this morning, and or I guess they're at their seasonal averages, which is pretty low for this time of year. But still getting a nice reports of some good walleyes up at the dam, and a nice mixed bag of fish up there as always, but also some nice flatheads coming out of that area, flathead catfish, and good smallmouth action, and walleyes in the deep areas around sandbars, wood, and current corners, stuff like that. Anywhere you can find some deeper water is where you're likely to find fish down that way. Haven't heard much out of Lake Wisconsin the last couple of weeks, but I'd imagine trolling is still going pretty effective up there for those fish. And crawlers and flicker shads have been good all summer, so I imagine that's still the case up there. Been hearing about some good smallmouth action between the Dells and Portage. I haven't heard much out of the Wisconsin Dells Dam the last couple of weeks. I know they were getting some short walleyes up there a couple of weeks ago, but haven't heard much lately. Castle Rock Dam and Pettenwell dams have been producing the usual mixed bag you find at dams, catfish and walleyes, smallmouth. The lakes themselves, sounds like the action has been picking up. The water is starting to clear up there too, so they've been getting walleyes on deeper humps, mid-lake humps in the mornings, and trolling in the midday has been good for those fish. Um, Panfish action has also picked up from what I've been told, as those fish are holding tight to cover, but they are being caught on minnows and crawlers in those both those lakes. Elsewhere out here, I guess the Mississippi River sounds like action's picking up out there. With the cooler temps, the fish are getting into their fall patterns, but it sounds like just about everything's biting out there now. So walleyes, smallmouth on the wing dams, bluegills and crappies in the off-current areas along shore, rocks, and wood is good for crappies. Also, of course, the sloughs up and down the river are a pretty safe bet for some good panfish action. Let's see. Otherwise, over on the East Coast, over here in Milwaukee, been hearing about the salmon moving in closer. Guys from shore are starting to get them, and I did read one report that someone reported that they were even seeing fish starting to move into the river. Sounds a little, or the rivers, I should say. I can't remember which one they said, but sounds a little early to me. But it also is that time of year, so they'll be pushing up there soon. Also been hearing about some browns that are starting to move into the harbor, following those salmon in, and those browns will follow those salmon right up the rivers and then do their spawning in November there. Haven't heard anything out of the Milwaukee River. I'm sure the smallmouth are starting to get nervous that the salmon are going to be moving in, and they usually push the smallmouth out, or I don't know where they go, but I've never caught a smallmouth in the fall in any of the rivers, the tributaries to the Milwaukee or to the Lake Michigan. Same story, pretty much all the way up the East Coast here. You're going to find fish starting to stack up in harbors, salmon stacking up their kings, getting ready to push up the river first. Over to Green Bay, I've been hearing about some great walleye actions as those fish start to get their fall feed bag on. So if you're looking for a trip, they're getting a lot of fish out there. Trout fishing around the area continues to be great. I made a post earlier this week where I was out and caught a really nice brown trout on a hopper and a bunch of other fish. But hoppers are pretty much the name of the game right now, although I have heard a couple reports, some friends that have been out, and they've bumped into some mayfly hatches coming off, mostly in the afternoon. But fish are looking up, and so whether they see a hopper or they see a mayfly, they're likely going to grab it because they're getting ready. Those browns and brook trout especially are getting ready to spawn, so they're active and putting the feed bag on too. I guess that's it for the report. If you have any questions, feel free to call the shop. We can elaborate on anything we discussed here today. Otherwise, post your comments, post your catches below. We love to see that. And yeah, good luck to everybody out there, and we'll talk next week. Thanks so much. Bye now.